call the roll. For the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we gather in your name and pray your Spirit upon us. Lord, it is a community that we gather to do the business of, and for that, Lord, we pray wisdom upon our leaders and our elected officials, all who gather here to represent the people. Lord, it's never redundant to pray for our first responders and those who serve us, who put their lives on the line each and every day, that they put on that uniform or carry that pager. And so for your protecting hand upon them, Lord, we seek you and your presence. And for our people, our community, those who call this place home, that your peace may be upon them, that your Spirit may live through each one of us, and that we would seek to love and to serve one another. For we pray all of this in the name of Jesus. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend, for being here tonight. I'd like to ask the clerk if there are any revisions to tonight's agenda.
There are no revisions.
All right, tonight we have two distinct parts of our meeting. The first is planning and zoning. Will be handled first, followed by our regular commission meeting. I'll ask the clerk to read our planning and zoning statement that is required by law, followed by the items on the planning and zoning consent agenda.
We would like to welcome all present to this meeting of the Unified Government Commission. Members of the commission are Mayor Mark Holland, Commissioner Melissa Bynum, at-large District 1, Commissioner Hal Walker, at-large District 2, Commissioner Gail Townsend, District 1, Commissioner Brian McKiernan, District 2, Commissioner Ann Mugia, District 3, Commissioner Harold Johnson Jr., District 4, Commissioner Mike Kane, District 5, Commissioner Angela Markley, District 6, Commissioner Jim Walters, District 7, and Commissioner Jane Philbrook, District 8. As each petition is called this evening, all persons for or against will be given the opportunity to express their views. If this is the first time that a particular petition has been before this commission, the commission has three options. Number 1, it can approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission with 6 votes. Number 2, it can override the Planning Commission's recommendation, but it would take 8 votes to override. And number 3, it can return the matter to the Planning Commission for further consideration together with the statement specifying the reason for the referral back to the Planning Commission. The consent agenda is the first part of the Planning and Zoning agenda. Items on the consent agenda have received a unanimous vote of recommendation by the Planning Commission. Unless there is a request to set aside an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the public, the Unified Government Commission, or staff, then the Planning Commission's recommendation on all items on the consent agenda will be adopted by the Unified Government Commission at one time. I will read the list of agenda items on the consent agenda, and when I have completed the list, the mayor will ask if there are any requests to set aside items on the consent agenda. This is your time to stand up and request that an item be set aside if you do not agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation. If an item is set aside, the matter will be discussed and voted upon separately. All items not set aside will be approved with the Planning Commission's recommendation. We appreciate the attendance of those people here this evening, and we recognize the importance of each petition. We would remind you that there are a number of items on the agenda, and we would appreciate your efforts to make your remarks as concise as possible. We ask that anyone with a cell phone to please turn them off or switch to non-audio so you will not disturb the meeting. Once the petitioner makes their presentation, anyone for or against will be allowed the maximum 3 minutes to state your views. As you come to the microphone, please state your name and your city for the record. The mayor and commission are required to disclose contacts with proponents or opponents on any item on the planning and zoning agenda. I will ask if any members of the commission wish to disclose any contact with proponents or opponents on any item on the agenda.
Commissioner Markley.
I've had contact with opponents of SP 2016-33 on the non-consent agenda.
Commissioner McKiernan.
On the non-consent agenda, SP 2016-15, I've had contact with proponents and opponents.
All right, let the record show I see no other commissioner registering a contact.
I will now read the items on the consent agenda. Change of zone application, item number 1, number 3112, Laura Christensen with Catherine Kelly. Change of zone from R1 Single Family District to AG Agricultural District for farming with one barn and 2 greenhouses at 2931 South 78th Street, recommended for approval. Special use permit applications, item number 1, SP 2014-71, Board of Public Utilities, special use permit for a substation and dirt removal at 1130 Ray Avenue, recommended for approval. Item 2, SP 2016-45, Jeffrey Zimmerman, special use permit for an auto repair shop with used car sales at 6863 State Avenue, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 3, SP 2016-46, Christopher McCall, special use permit for continuation of a rooming house at 616 South 10th Street, recommended for approval 1 year. Item 4, SP 2016-49, Rachel Pollock with KCK Farmers Market, special use permit for a farmers market at 2220 Central Avenue, recommended for approval for 1 year. Item 5, SP 2016-50, Rachel Pollock with KCK Farmers Market, special use permit for a farmers market at 7240 State Avenue, recommended for approval for 1 year. Plan review application, item 1, SP 2016-11, Mark Kerfman with Urban Architecture Studio, preliminary plan review for renovation of an existing building for a church at 1315 North 139th Street, recommended for approval. Miscellaneous ordinances, an ordinance replacing and amending the sign regulations of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, amending sections 27-270 to 27-738 to Chapter 27, Article 8 of the 2008 Code of Ordinances and Resolutions of the Unified Government. A clerical error has been identified in section 27-726 of the digital sign brightness, correcting the words, and the ordinance should read, a digital sign shall not operate at brightness levels of more than 0.3 foot candles above ambient light as measured using a foot candle meter at a distance of 250 feet from the sign. Item number 2, an ordinance rezoning property located at 1403 Metropolitan Avenue from R1B Single Family District to CPO Planned Non-Retail Business District. Item 3 is an ordinance vacating at approximately Frantz Family Drive at 98th Street. Item 4 is an ordinance vacating property at 1403 Metropolitan Avenue. Item 5 is an ordinance vacating the alley at 334 South Mill Street. Those are all the items on consent agenda.
All right, would any member of the commission or anyone in attendance tonight wish to set aside any item on the consent agenda? Any item not set aside will be voted on by a single vote. Commissioner Murguia.
I'd like to remove miscellaneous ordinances under that category, number 3101. It's the 1403 Metropolitan Avenue ordinance. And then further down the ordinance, R/W 2016-1, it's also 1403 Metropolitan Avenue.
Okay, those two items, that's E2 and E4, have been removed.
Move for approval for all remaining items.
Second.
Let the record show no one else is moving to remove an item. It is properly before us. Roll call.
Roll call, Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley. Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
All right, that brings us to this item. I do want to recognize, before we go any further, though, we do have former Commissioner Joe Vaught in attendance tonight. Mr. Vaught, we appreciate your being here. All right, that brings us to items E2 and E4. Commissioner, would you like to say anything about why you wanted to remove those?
Yes, I understand that we've already, as a commission, approved these items in a previous meeting. Since that meeting, I've obtained some additional information that I thought I should bring to the commission's attention. The building located at 1403 Metropolitan came in front of us, I think approximately a month and a half or so ago, requesting permission to get zoning so they could operate as a community center. I did not interpret that as entailing or involving a food pantry, which they have proceeded to run out of that building, I believe, at least for the last couple of months. Probably a couple weeks ago, I received a flood of phone calls from residents who were unable to get into their own driveway in front of their own house because Metropolitan Avenue from 14th Street to 18th Street Expressway backed up onto the expressway was a line of cars waiting to receive their free bag of groceries at the Franklin Center. Apparently, the truck that delivers the food to be distributed was late, and as a result, there was a long, long line of traffic. I contacted police. Police went out. Cones had to be put up, and traffic had to be managed by our police department. I would have expressed concerns about a food pantry in that location had that been brought to my attention at the time. Then 2 days later, I discovered an enormous amount of trash at Emerson Park, less than, 8 blocks away, definitely within a mile, where another organization is offering free food to people in the middle of our park, unbeknownst to me or any kind of special use permit or park and recreation process that I've been aware of. Then less than 20 feet away, I discovered that the Argentine Recreation Center is offering free food to people every day, Monday through Friday. Then I contacted Commissioner Markley, who informed me that Harmon High School, again less than a mile away, is giving away free food. And then on my bike ride home off of Steele, less than a mile away, I discovered that the distribution center run by Catholic Charities now has a sign out front advertising free food.
Are you talking about a lunch program? A feeding
I
program?
think they're all distributions of free food.
Okay, when you say free food, are we talking about groceries or are we talking about a meal?
I'm talking about both. I don't know the details of all of these programs, but these free programs attract a number of people and not always people that are from the neighborhood. My concern is that I'm unaware of them. My other concern is that the amount of trash and debris left in Emerson Park after one of the events was so much so that it took 4 volunteers and 2 50-gallon trash bags filled with trash, and it took a couple hours to clean up after this group. So though I am all in support of helping people eat and have access to healthy food, what I'm not in support of is destroying a neighborhood to do it. And additional traffic that doesn't allow people to get in and out of their house, people meandering around a neighborhood that they don't live in, I just think causes problems. It increases crime. We have trash issues. We have traffic issues. So we've already approved this. I wanted to say all of that on the public record, that I don't know what our zoning laws are, but I just remember when there was a food pantry issue in District 1, it was a big discussion, and that food pantry was not allowed. I'm very interested in knowing how there are 5 food pantries in Argentine, and there may be more. Those are just the 5 I know about as of today, within less than a mile of each other. And at some point, and it may not be tonight's meeting, but at some point, I'd like to have some discussion about that and how we get that under control. One last thing. the other concerning part is feeding people is one thing, but the trash that we picked up was food that was wasted. Ketchup packets that kids had put down on the ground, stomped on and splattered all over playground equipment and the gazebo area. Round containers of marinara sauce smeared on the side of the gazebo. Bread laying on the ground. These were not people that were hungry because the food was not being eaten. It was being thrown around the park. So I do think we need to get a handle on that. People live in Argentine. It's not a trash yard. It's not a dump yard. I understand there are a lot of weekend warriors that want to come to Wyandotte County and do feel-good work and then go back to their other counties or other suburbs and feel good about what they did. But I feel very strongly that you should not destroy a neighborhood to do that. So I hope we can have maybe a special session even in regard to this. And I just want to know if, from planning staff for tonight's purposes, and so we can move on, if voting for this evening is an endorsement of another food pantry in the Argentine neighborhood, I need to know that before I vote, because I would be voting against that. If there's another way to handle this and planning staff has a recommendation, then I'm fine with moving forward. I need to hear from staff, though.
With regards to the change of zone that was before you, I think a month and a half ago, there was no mention of a food pantry when Franklin Center came through for their zoning change. And actually, CPO, Planned Non-Retail Business District, does not permit that type of use in the district itself. So if we're talking about strictly a food pantry for distribution, if someone's giving free food away, I don't know where that line is, but for distribution, it's not permitted in the district.
Okay, I want to say too, there's a federal program, a federal summer feeding program for kids that many of our schools participate in. District 500 participates in it. District 500 is 90% free and reduced lunch. And if those kids didn't get breakfast and lunch at school, they might not eat all day. During the summer, the federal government makes provisions to open up many of the schools, high schools and elementary schools, and other community centers around the community as a feeding program for hungry kids. And thank God they do it and that kids are getting fed, because if the kids weren't getting fed through these programs, we'd have kids in our program going the whole summer looking for food. So there's a widespread feeding program that's been going on forever, that's during the summer, that has a ton of outlets. And I'm not surprised I have kids who would stomp on a ketchup packet. I think the concern is the supervision to make sure that that happens. I think a kid can eat a lot of food without eating their ketchup. But I think there needs to be some cleanup, and I do think there needs to be responsibility taken by the people leading those feeding sites. But those feeding sites in the summer are critical to our kids. And I'm glad we have them. We have them all over the city. They're not just in Argentine and Rosedale. They're all over the community. And I think they're very important. And I think we need to do whatever we can to support those feeding programs and not make negative comments about kids who don't have food and bringing the wrong kind of people. Those are our kids that are going to those feeding programs, and thank God we have them. So I think we need to defend those and protect those. So that's my statement on those feeding programs, and I'm unhappy to hear any disparaging remarks about families and kids who are depending on that food for their livelihood. Commissioner Markley.
Mayor, I would just say I don't think that those are the programs that Commissioner Murguia is referring to. When she referred to Harmon High School, she's not referring to the daytime lunch program. They have a mobile food bank that runs there on Saturdays. The difference is that at Harmon, there's a lot of parking lot, and the people pull into the parking lot, and so there's no backup onto the main road, and that was part of the issue with the Franklin Center, was not that we don't want people to drive up and get food, but it has to be in a location where that can happen without disrupting the flow of traffic and disrupting the flow of the neighborhood. So I think she's referring to different kind of pantry programs than the feeding programs you're
Well, I
discussing.
understand the difference at Franklin Center, because there have been a number of times when food pantries has caused traffic backup that we've worked to move them to another site that's more conducive to traffic flow. And we've had that on a number of sites, not just here. So if there is a problem with this food pantry, the food pantry can't back up the street, and I agree with that. Commissioner Murguia?
Mayor, this is not intended to be some debate with you or you always attacking whatever my position is. No one is attacking, especially me, a food program that feeds poor people. No one is attacking that. No neighborhood needs five food pantries within a mile of each other. I mean, just like we passed an ordinance, which you spearheaded, not to have dollar stores, more than one within a mile of each other. We don't need that many food pantries. One can suffice, two could suffice, whatever the situation is. We don't need 5 concentrated in one area. And I'm talking about the operations of them as well. Not one disparaging word was said about people that are poor, that need help in finding food to eat. Not one thing was said about that. I live on 25th and Strong. I walk the walk. I live in a low-income neighborhood.
If I
raise my family.
misheard you, I apologize.
Mayor, I have the floor.
If I misheard you, I apologize.
I have the floor, Mayor, so please just let me finish. Every time I say anything remotely in defense of my neighborhood, you attack me, publicly and everywhere else. Nobody in this room can ever think 5 food pantries within a mile of each other, 5 of anything within a mile of each other is unnecessary. It's overkill. It is burdening the people that are living there and raising their families here. I simply asked for a discussion about it. I didn't mean to cause any controversy. I am representing my neighborhood to the best of my ability, all the people that live there, not just some of them. The majority of these people coming to these food pantries don't live there. I'm fine with that also. They need to be run better, and there are too many of them. And making me out to be some sort of poor person hater isn't going to work when I raise my family on 25th and Strong in one of the poorest neighborhoods in Kansas City, Kansas. So that's my comment. I just want to know if I vote for this today. I appreciate your information. It's obviously not an endorsement of a food pantry, and I'm assuming that I can work with staff to address the overabundance of them and our codes department to make sure those that are eligible to be food pantries, that they will abide by our rules in keeping things picked up and looking nice and orderly and be respectful of the full community. Correct?
Correct.
All right.
Thank you.
We have a public hearing on items E2 and E4. We could do that public hearing together. They are on the same property. Would anyone like to speak today in favor of these 2 items? If so, please come forward at this time. Let the record show no one's coming forward. Anyone like to speak in opposition to these 2 items? Let the record show no one is
Move for
coming
approval.
forward at this time. The item is moved and seconded and properly before us. Roll call.
Roll call, Walker,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Mugia,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane, Markley,
Aye.
Walters, Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum. The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
All right, that brings us to our planning and zoning non-consent agenda, item A1. Please note in the paragraph, the typographical error on the second line. It says a fenced gravel product storage lot. The gravel is not allowed by our ordinance. It's a typo. It should say asphalt. So please replace gravel with asphalt. And it is before us. We need to open, we'll ask the staff to lead off on this, and then we'll open it up.
Thank you, Mayor. The applicant applied for a change of zone from RM Mobile Home Park District to M2 General Industrial District to have a small warehouse, office, and storage yard. They're a underground piping utility company that manufactures fire hydrant pipes and stormwater pipes, so that's what they're doing.
All right, we need to open the public hearing. Is anyone in attendance tonight like to speak in favor of this project? The record show no one coming forward. Anyone like to speak in opposition? I see no one moving forward.
Move for approval.
Second.
It is moved and seconded. It is properly before us. Roll call.
Roll call, Walker,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Mugia,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane, Markley,
Aye.
Walters, Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum. The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
That brings us to item B1, Susan Prucka, renewal of a special use permit to kennel 6 dogs. Is the applicant here tonight? All right, you're welcome to come forward at this time, make your presentation.
Good evening. I did send back the written response to the concerns which were the dog waste, noise, and I really can't remember the other one, but when I responded, security, so the dogs didn't get out. I sent pictures of what is not visible by the street. If you go by my street, my backyard is not visible, where there is a humongous dog pound that the dogs are confined in a lot. When they go outside, they just run there. And then there's another fenced-in area right by the patio in the backyard. Neither of these are visible to the street. So to see all the preventive measures we've installed to keep these dogs safe and out of the streets with people, I think more than takes care of the need to keep them confined in my yard. And basically, these animals are inside dogs. They don't even like the heat. They don't like the cold. They like my bed. So they go out, and it's probably more like 8 times a day I take them out. Every time I go in the kitchen, I take them outside, or they'll mess in the house. So they don't run outside and just bark. They run outside to go to the restroom and get back in the air conditioning. So if there are any other comments that I can address, I'd be happy to.
All right, ma'am, we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing, and so you're welcome to sit in the front, and if there are comments, you'll have an opportunity to make a summative comment at the end. Is there anyone in attendance tonight who would like to speak in favor of this application? Let the record show no one is speaking in favor. Would anyone like to speak in opposition to this? Let the record show no one is speaking in opposition. I will close the public hearing. Staff, do you have any comment before we turn it over to the commission?
No further comment.
All right, Commissioner Markley.
If I could ask a question, if you come back to the microphone, thank you so much. You mentioned sort of a dog run, I think, that your dogs are confined to when they're in your yard. Is that on the side that the neighbors are on?
I really can't hear you well.
That the dog run that you mentioned, where the dogs are confined when they're in your yard?
It's not a dog run. It is part of the yard. And okay, it's kind of hard to describe. Okay, right there, okay. See where the sidewalk is? If you bring right around that, no, go this way. Up that, right there, in that area, there is where the compounds are. There is one that's sealed completely so the dogs can't get out of there. Now, if I open that to let them go in the yard, generally they go back to the compound that also has a secure lock on it so they can't just get in and out at will. But I usually leave it open so when they're done, they just go back in the air conditioning.
So I have received several calls since your last permit approval 6 months ago regarding noise, the dogs barking. Unfortunately, none of those neighbors are here tonight. They didn't choose to come and speak about that in person, but I know I've received the calls over the course of those 6 months multiple times from the neighbors nearby. So I guess my comment to you would be, if there's a way to not have the dogs on that side of the yard, that would probably be something you should look into if you want to have a longer term permit.
Well, I own the property next door. I own that house as well. We bought it at what do you call it? When somebody's mortgage, whatever, and we rebuilt the whole house. I own that house, so I don't know how much further I could, and the yard is actually 2.5 lots. So I own the property on both sides. And as a matter of fact, the lady across the street from me, Sharon Osborne, has 2 little bitty dogs. And the lady that owns Bilski's yelled at her the other day to shut those dogs up because she changed them every morning outside on her patio. And they just bark, especially at the mailman. I can't say my dogs stay outside and I don't chain them. So I think that's kind of subjective to say they're my dogs because that lady, those 2 ladies got into it over that.
Bottom line, they're not here tonight, like I said.
I'm not trying to argue, ma'am.
So I'm just saying, I got calls about it, and I think your intent over this time has been to get a longer-term permit. And what I'm saying as the commissioner for this district is if you want a 2-year permit, we need to not have any complaints. So if your dogs are staying out longer, maybe in the nicer months when it's prettier outside and they're barking, please make sure and get them inside, because as long as we continue to hear from neighbors, we're not gonna wanna give you that longer permit. So I'm fine with moving forward with a 6-month permit tonight because there are no neighbors here to protest, but I know in the past I have received those complaints. I'm just giving you my advice that if you want the longer-term permit, you gotta make sure we're not hearing complaints
I
about your
get it.
dogs.
Thank you.
Commissioner Philbrook.
So I have a question for staff. What do we consider supervised? Does that mean that the lady is present with her dogs out in the yard? Is that what that means?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so now I'm confused because I've been hearing that your dogs can come and go as they please in and
That
out.
is not so.
Ma'am, the commissioner's speaking.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ma'am, that is just not so.
Well, didn't you say it could come in and out of the compound by themselves?
Right, ma'am, there are 3 fences. When I go out, I watch them. I'm on the patio and I watch them. They usually play in the yard, dig around, then they go down to the other compound. I let them stay out there about 10 minutes. I call them all back in. They don't just run loose.
I said I was confused. I didn't say I wanted to argue. I don't.
Ma'am, I'm not trying to argue.
I don't appreciate the argumentative attitude you're taking with
Oh,
us.
ma'am, I'm
We're on
not.
we're on a fact-finding mission here.
Oh, okay.
And that's all I'm asking you.
Oh, ma'am, I do watch them and they don't run loose. They do not run loose
Commissioner, do you
because
have
I
any other
know I'm being
comments?
watched anyway.
Ma'am?
Yes.
No, I've got nothing else.
Okay. Commissioner Walker.
I have a question for staff. Is this one of these that perpetually, I quickly tried to find it in here, and is it dog dies, she gets to get another dog?
No,
So it is a reducing number,
correct. The dogs may not be replaced.
reaches the legal limit.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
All right. The item is before us. I don't see anyone else interested in talking. Is there a motion?
Move to approve for 6 months.
Second.
All right, that is a recommendation of the Planning Committee. Roll call.
Roll call Walker,
Aye.
Townsend,
No.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Mugia,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane,
No.
Barkley,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Philbrook,
No.
Bynum.
Aye.
The vote is 7-3. That motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Been
you
approved
so
for 6
much.
months.
Thank you.
All right, item B2, Willie Fields. We have a proposal from staff for a revocation of special use permit. Commissioner McKiernan, do you want to take this from here, or do you want to have the staff lead it?
Wrong button. We can have staff lead it, but I do have a comment I'd like to make.
So this application was held over last month from the Board of Commissioners to seek questions from the applicant and the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. It has been brought before you for revocation of the special use permit due to an incident that happened earlier this year, and that's where it stands right now.
So as I said last month, I applaud Mr. Fields for being a young entrepreneur who wants to make a positive gathering place in our community where people can gather and have a good time and enjoy each other's company. Certainly, Mr. Fields has had a couple of bumps along the road to establishing this business, and there was a very unfortunate incident at the club earlier this year. Since our last meeting, and Commission has all of this in the agenda packet, I asked a number of additional clarifying questions so I could get some background on what steps have been taken and are continuing to be taken to make sure that the club operates safely for everyone who visits and for every neighbor who is around that club. I believe Mr. Fields has provided me with answers that I am satisfied with. He seems to be taking positive and proactive steps toward making his club a place where people can come and enjoy themselves and feel safe doing so. I asked Assistant Chief Garner and Captain Hallmark to visit with Mr. Fields. They went through the CPTED, the Crime Prevention through Environmental Design review of his property, and they reported that he was very receptive to the suggestions that they made regarding things that he could do additionally to ensure the safety of every patron who comes to that establishment. And they reported that it was a good experience, and that they identified some additional steps that he could take, and that he was open to taking those steps. So with all of that said, I would like to move to deny the revocation of the special use permit.
Second.
No, we had the public hearing last week, so we will not reopen the public hearing. It is properly before the commission. Now, one of the items is, there's two ways we could do this. The motion that's been made is to not revoke, which means to do nothing. Another way to do it is if there's no motion. You see what I'm saying? Because we don't have to take action on this item. It did not come from the Planning and Zoning Committee. It came from our staff. Is that right? Well, we'll do it your way. So what I'm going to do,
We'll do it whichever way is the best way to do it for the purpose of this
I'll ask
proceeding.
legal to guide us in terms of the best way to proceed, just so we get I want to make sure we honor the will of the commission.
Well, since the matter's on the agenda, it would probably be best for the record if there was some final action as opposed to just leaving it pending.
Okay.
And it could be, so if you vote yes for this, then you are voting to not revoke it and to keep the permit in place.
Okay. A yes vote keeps the permit in place and it does not revoke it. A no vote is a vote to revoke the permit. Does everyone understand that? So yes for the permit, no against the permit. Got it? Commissioner Townsend?
Thank you. Well, I think the clarification has just been given. I too support that Mr. Fields be given an opportunity to go forward with his business. I was impressed with the response I gathered from the information and the responses to Commissioner McKiernan's questions, that there was a sense of compliance and the desire to really be a good, thriving business and to do all that he could in the community to have a great business. I was a bit disturbed last month by some of the things in our packet that seemed to taint his business unnecessarily with things that were in the past and had nothing to do with him and his current business. So my question really was, what would be, if we vote to deny this revocation, what would be the status of his permits? And it seems as though there were 2 permits. Does he have both? Will they be in effect? That's what I'd like to see done.
Both permits are in effect until February 25th, 2017.
Okay. Commissioner Bynum?
Those were my questions.
All right, the item is before us. The motion is to deny the revocation. So if you vote yes, you're voting in support of keeping their permit. If you vote no, you're voting to deny the permit. You with me? Roll call.
Roll call. Walker?
Well, I think aye.
That would be a yes. Okay. Townsend?
I'm sure aye.
McKiernan?
Aye.
Mugia?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Kane? Markley?
Aye.
Walters? Philbrook?
Aye.
Bynum?
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
You've retained your permit. Thank you for coming tonight. All right, that brings us to our regular session, non-planning consent agenda. If anyone in the meeting tonight or any commissioner would like to remove an item from the consent agenda, please step forward and do so now. All items not removed will be voted on by a single vote.
Move for approval.
Second.
Let the record show no one was moving to the microphone in order to remove an item. It is properly before us. Roll call.
Roll call. Walker?
Aye.
Townsend?
Aye.
McKiernan?
Aye.
Mugia? Johnson,
Aye.
Kane, Markley,
Aye.
Walters, Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
That brings us to the Standing Committee agenda, item number 1. It was presented to the Administration Human Services on Monday and fast-tracked. It does take effect by state law tomorrow, and we are approving this to bring our ordinances in line with state law around concealed carry.
Move for approval.
Second.
Commissioner Markley, would you like to make any statement as the chair of the committee?
I would. I have a statement and then a question. There's been a lot of chatter online for those of you who follow the Facebook world about this particular action. So I just want to say, from my perspective, state law requires us to allow concealed carry under certain circumstances. We have a sliver of control left, which is our ability to set our own policies as a government in regards to how our employees operate. We're trying to use that sliver of control as best we can to make sure that our employees and our residents feel safe, and that's what I feel like this policy does. My question is, and I sort of noticed this as I was re-reviewing this after Monday's meeting, I think there's language in there that says something to the extent of, if you violate this, you could have consequences up to and including termination. Is there any reason we can't just say, if you violate this, you will be terminated? What is the reason for giving that out? Because as far as I'm concerned, if you're gonna conceal carry, you better know when you're allowed to do it and when you're not allowed to do it. And if you accidentally bring your gun where you shouldn't, you're putting everybody here in jeopardy, making everyone feel unsafe, and your job should be over. That's how I feel about it.
Well, Commissioner, I think that's a good point. I think that there are basically a laundry list of prohibited things. For example, if you leave a firearm unattended at your desk, that's much more serious than having it on your hip with your shirt too tight that people could see it, that you're wearing it. So I think that language gives the supervisor of that employee some latitude in making sure that the violation more appropriately fits the offense.
Is there a way to limit the laundry list and say, when you're carrying the gun in a place you're not supposed to be, you're gonna be terminated, and skip around all of those less, dangerous, potential violations?
There is. I mean, we can put it forth to be hard and fast, and it is termination. I think the way it's written is to, as Mr. Moore noted, it allows some latitude of discretion in going through and evaluate just the seriousness of what was done for the employee in question and what has happened.
I just think if we're gonna make people feel like they're safe, and there are some people that no doubt will feel more safe because they get to carry their gun and that's what they wanna do, but there are another group of people that will feel less safe. If we're gonna make people feel safe, I think that we need to, our employees need to understand that if people violate these rules, there are gonna be very strict consequences. Now, my follow-up question on that is, this obviously goes into effect tomorrow, which is why we're considering this tonight. So if we wanted to make some kind of amendment, presumably we would have to approve it tonight and then have the amendment come subsequently in order to make sure that something is in place tomorrow.
I think that would be the right recommendation. What we can do is we can go ahead and vote tonight, and then as the chair of the standing committee, you can request this to be back on the agenda, and we can work with legal for a remedy and run it through your standing committee, and then have a proper opportunity to really evaluate the language and make sure it's what you want. Does that seem reasonable? All right, and I'll commit to putting it onto your next agenda, your next month's agenda, so you can review it. Does that sound all right?
And I apologize, I didn't think over that particular piece of language on Monday, but.
That's all right. All right, Commissioner Kane.
I agree with you, Commissioner Markley, as far as, it's kind of forced upon us. The only way we can change that is to go out and vote, and for those that have ran this stuff down our throat, along with this and prevailing wage and other things that have been directly affected to Wyandotte County, if we don't go out and vote, we can't change it, and there's no other way to fix it until we have the opportunity to remove some people from office.
One of the things I'd like to do tonight, Human Resources has a brief presentation. I think it would be beneficial for the public. When people ask me, why did you approve allowing guns in the workplace, which is not anything I would ever want to do, I think it's important that we do let the public see this presentation, and it's a tool we can point back to. If someone would like to see the presentation, they can see it online for themselves. So I'll ask you to walk through this at this time.
This is a summary of the presentation that was made to the standing committee, and also which was given to the supervisory staff at their operations meeting on Wednesday. The law that was passed says that an employer cannot restrict or prohibit personnel by personnel policies any employee who's qualified. Now, qualified is interesting because you're qualified if you're not a felon and if you're not convicted of a domestic violence charge. You don't have to have any testing or any training or any permit. Any employee who's qualified from carrying a concealed handgun while engaged in their work duties. But it's limited to outside the employer's place of business, so you can't automatically carry it at your desk. But it does say that you can carry it in the UG vehicle. So there's no guns in UG vehicles, but this is a short period deal because we have an exemption that we required in 2013 for 4 years. After that exemption's over, we have to have metal detectors to prohibit employees from carrying guns in the unified government buildings. Again, legally qualifies that you're not a felon or you're not convicted of a domestic battery violation. Okay, it's concealed carry. It's only a handgun. It has to be concealed on your person, and it has to be carried in such a way that people don't know that you have it. And it's a new term I learned, printing. The person down there, you can see that they're obviously having a handgun under their shirt. That would be a violation of our policy. It should be carried in a manner that no one knows you have it. It has to be completely concealed at all times. It has to be in immediate control of the employee at all times. You can't set it down at your desk. You can't put it someplace and walk around. It has to be on your person at all times. You can't leave it unattended. And you can't leave it unattended in a UG vehicle. So although you're entitled to keep it in a UG vehicle, you can't put it in a glove compartment and go into lunch or do whatever. You have to have it on your person at all times, or but you are allowed to have it on your person while in a UG vehicle. And of course, you can always have it in your own vehicle, and it can be unattended in your vehicle. So for example, an employee can come to work, leave their gun in their car, come to work, work all day, but they can leave it unattended in their vehicle, even though the vehicle's on UG property. Okay, this is a prohibited acts in the policy. Again, no one should know that you have it. It's not supposed to be displayed. You can't carry it openly. If you fail to keep the gun in your immediate possession and control, and that's leaving it, again, in a UG vehicle or on your desk is a violation. And you can't use it illegally, of course, in the workplace. You're not supposed to use it at all. That's really nothing, no use is approved by this policy. And then, of course, that's legally qualified. Okay, so this is an example of, let's say a code inspector goes out and does an inspection, and the property owner does not want them to have that weapon. Well, they have a problem because they can't go back and put it in their UG vehicle, and the property owner won't let them come on their property with a firearm. So this says you have to abide by all other laws and regulations relating to the firearms. Okay, unless you are a law enforcement officer where you are certified to carry a weapon, carrying a weapon is not within the scope of your employment. And so if you shoot yourself in the foot, that's not a work comp claim. If you injure someone or get in some incident with a gun, the UG is not going to say that you're in the performance of your duty and automatically defend you for any damages. You're doing that on your individual liability. And this has to go into effect tomorrow.
All right, thank you for that presentation. I would like to make a statement that the state legislature continues to complain about those politicians in Washington overreaching their effect and infringing on states' rights, and yet that same legislature is actively creating more burden for the local communities. There is a constitutional amendment in the state of Kansas on the books that says that communities have home rule. The gun laws of the last 2 years are the first time since statehood that the cities of Kansas have not had permission to regulate their own gun laws as they see fit. It is not surprising that the cities of Wichita, Kansas City, and Topeka have very different concerns than, say, Pratt, Colby, and Concordia, Kansas. Each city is of a different size with a different makeup. Our city is a city of 2 million that we live in the metropolitan area, and we need to be able to make laws that make sense for our own community. We have trained nearly 300 police officers and an additional 200 deputies to carry guns, extensive training. They're qualified to carry a gun, and they have a sworn oath carrying that gun. I am not happy about the idea that people who have no training and no oath are carting guns around while employed for the unified government. I think that we're not going to solve cancer with cigarettes. We're not going to solve gun violence with guns. And this additional burden on the cities is a liability for our community that's unacceptable. It is required by state law, and we will commit to abiding by state law. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
It is properly before us. Roll call.
Roll call, Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
That brings us to the administrator's agenda, the establishing of a downtown SMID. We have been following the policy set out by state law. We've had our public hearing, and we are now here for the vote. Commissioner McKiernan? Do you want to?
Mr. Waters have a presentation.
No, Mayor, all I was going to say is that, yes, this item is for your consideration tonight. If it's okay with you, the chairman of the SMID Advisory Board would like to make a few comments responding to the public's comments from last month's meeting before a vote is held.
If the commission would allow, is there a motion to that effect? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call. No, not roll call. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, so you may come forward. Since we've closed the public hearing already, I'd like to ask the commission's permission.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. Bach. Thank you. We all heard a number of people speak at the public hearing back on May 26th. A number spoke in favor of renewing the SMID, and a number spoke in opposition. The SMID Advisory Board has spent a lot of time taking a look at the complaints and objections that were raised during that hearing to see if there's anything that we might recommend to accommodate those who had complaints. As we go down the list of complaints, actually the majority of them really did not have to do with the SMID at all. Most of the speakers who opposed complained about high property taxes, and I think we all agree that property taxes in Wyandotte County are higher than any of us would like, but a very small part of that's related to the SMID. I'll address that shortly. They complained about high appraisals, they complained about lack of code enforcement, and other things that we really have nothing to do with. They complained about overnight crime, in which their property vehicles were broken into overnight. Unfortunate that those things happen, but I remind you that our mission is to help see that people feel safe when they're shopping downtown, when they're dining downtown, when they're coming to and from work. Our mission does not involve anything trying to reduce overnight crime. The point was made that the SMID is doing good work, but the burden should not be placed on the small business person. And we agree with that. The facts will show that the burden is really not placed on the small business person. Most of the revenue for the SMID comes from the big businesses, the banks downtown, the Brotherhood of Boilermakers, the BPU, of course the unified government. It so happens that if you remove the 12 largest parcels, most highly appraised parcels within the district, the average cost per year to a parcel is $182.11. That's like $15 a month. 89% of the parcels within the district, their assessment is less than $500 a year or less than $41 a month. And almost 2/3 of the parcels, the assessment is only less than $100 a year, costing them less than $8 a month. I would not consider that a burden on the small business person. Several had indicated that they rarely see our ambassadors in their part of the district. That's primarily between 10th and 18th Street and south of Barnett. We were concerned if that was the case, we have a problem because those property owners are paying for SMID services and they should get those services. At our meeting last week on the 21st, among other things, we had the owner of Simmons Security, with the company which currently has the contract for both the cleaning and safety ambassadors, to present our board with their assignments on their other ambassadors, and that presentation was given. And it does, the schedule does call for a cleaning and safety ambassador to be in what they call Zone 3, which is west of 10th Street, every day. A copy of that report was sent to you by email. The Simmons Security does maintain logs to verify that their ambassadors are in fact out there calling on businesses and doing their jobs, so it is documented. It was further confirmed by the survey conducted by our consultant, Dave Reno of VOX Consulting, a consulting project funded by LISC, where he conducted a door-to-door survey throughout the SMID, and many of the businesses between 10th and 18th Street confirmed that they do see the ambassadors on a regular basis. And at our meeting on the 21st, one of the property owners in the 1100 block, Albert De Leon, spoke and says he does see them on a regular basis. So the folks that spoke, may not see them, but I assure you that they've been there. The other thing I will point out is we had a different cleaning contractor last year and the year before. Their performance was not up to par, and the ambassadors were not doing their job, and that's the reason that we went out for bid and we have a different contractor this year. There were suggestions made that the ambassadors waste a lot of time, and actually that is true, but it was last year and the year before. We had a series of 2 contractors who were not doing the job. We made the mistake that so many do. We went with the low bidder. When you go with the low bidder, you don't get good service. They were paying their ambassadors minimum wage. They did not have on-site supervision, and the ambassadors were not doing their job. That's not the case this year. One of the subjects that came up, and we discussed it probably an hour and a half on the 21st, was whether the boundaries that had been proposed in the original resolution were correct. The suggestion was made at the hearing on the 26th that we establish the western boundary at 10th Street and the southern boundary somewhere north of Sandusky. And we considered the pros and cons of doing that at some length. I will report to you that your advisory board recommends to you that we go with the boundaries as originally proposed. There were 2 main reasons that we wanted to do that. One is that although many of the property owners out there came to the hearing and objected, there are also many other property owners who have been within the district for now 7.5 years. They're pleased with it and they want to remain within it. But probably the bigger reason was we're looking at a 10-year time frame now, and we all expect hopefully when the downtown Parkway district healthy campus is a reality, there will be a considerable amount of development between 10th Street and Working West. And if we were to cut off the boundary at 10th Street, and let's say 2020, 2021, 22, new businesses move in, and they see east of 10th Street, it's nice and clean, no weeds, no trash, and they wonder why nobody's picking up their trash or getting rid of their weeds. We didn't think that that was the way we wanted things to be. So anyway, that's we are recommending that the boundaries be approved as presented. I should mention that it was suggested at our meeting last week that maybe we can shrink the boundaries now and then add them as this development occurs. Mr. Waters advised us that properties cannot be added during that 10-year period in any practical manner. It really requires the dismantling of this SMID and going through the whole process to establish a new one. So keep that in mind. I will mention also that I will admit that we have not been able to do as good a job cleaning your downtown, our downtown, as well as we should, as well as we had hoped to. I want to remind you, if you remember back in 2008 and 2009 when the SMID was established, we had a budget of around $400,000 a year. Then came the recession, a number of things happened, and one of them, of course, was the unified government's decision that it no longer could afford to make payments to the SMID. And I'm not here to debate whether that decision was right or wrong, but it's a fact, and that had ramifications. So our budget went from $400,000 a year to right at $300,000 a year. You can't do as much with $300,000 as you can with $400,000. For the last several years, we've only had 3 cleaning ambassadors, and you can't really keep downtown KCK clean with 3 cleaning ambassadors. The good news is, looking forward, we thank the unified government for increasing their payment by $50,000 this year and hopefully going forward. And more importantly, a number of parcels that had previously been exempt will not be exempt. And we're looking at an additional $70,000 to $80,000 annual revenue from those sources. So it looks like we'll be able to get our budget back up to $400,000 or in that neighborhood, be able to put more ambassadors out on the streets, do a better job of keeping downtown clean and safe. That's my comments to this point. However, I feel I must also reply to some accusations that you all received in the last couple of weeks in some emails, accusations that our ambassadors were doing things that were really not professional. I don't want to go into details, but I do ask you, if we had that many business owners downtown seeing that many things happen for 7 years, why did they not come to our executive director, one of our 11 board members, one of you, or somebody at City Hall to tell us that this was going on? We did not hear, other than from one property owner who we heard from repeatedly making those accusations, who's the same individual that originated the emails. Anyway, enough said about that.
You need to wrap up. Can you wrap up, please?
I am. In conclusion, the advisory board recommends approving the ordinance as presented. We expect to increase our service in the future, and as you've heard before, every great city must have a great downtown. Downtown KCK was great not all that long ago, and with your help, we're going to make it great again. Thank you.
All right, I could have done without that last phrase, but I understand your point. Commissioner McKiernan.
Thank you very much. I think we heard last time at the public hearing, and I have talked with a number of individuals since then about the SMID. I think some of those people that I have talked to may think that I am not in favor of the SMID, and nothing could be further from the truth. Every great downtown has a municipal improvement district of some shape or fashion because it's essential to keeping high-traffic areas clean and safe for all the visitors who come to that area. But I think we did hear from a lot of people, business owners, who are at the west end of this SMID, and certainly a municipal improvement district is a cooperative arrangement, and that if the majority say that they want to be part of a district, then the district is created and all contribute. But conversely, if the majority say they do not want to be part of a district, then one isn't created. So I would move that we approve the renewal of the SMID for 10 years with the following stipulations: that the boundaries be changed on the west from 18th Street to 12th Street, and on the south, where the boundary is currently Sandusky Avenue, that it be moved 1 block north to Torome Avenue.
Second.
All right, so it has been moved and seconded to approve the SMID as presented with the change of moving the western boundary to 12th Street and the southern boundary up to Torome, as presented on the map that we have here. Walker, Commissioner Walker.
What is the impact of this, changing this boundary? I mean,
What's the impact was the question.
why are we doing this?
I would propose that would allow the SMID and its crew to concentrate on the core of downtown, and while this particular district cannot be expanded of itself without being dissolved and reformed, additional districts can be formed at any time around this core district. Kansas City, Missouri, as I understand, has done this very thing, whereas development has rolled into new areas, they have created new districts to take care of the needs of the people in those districts.
What is the financial impact of your proposal on their anticipated operation?
I don't know.
The question was, what is the financial impact?
If we eliminate those properties west of 10th Street, this was
West of 12th Street,
not
west
12th.
of 12th.
I don't have the number for 12th, but I do have the number for west of 10th. So it's going to be
Okay.
close. If we were to eliminate those west of 10th Street, it would reduce our revenue by $43,000. Going to 12th Street, it'd be something less, so let's say $40,000. But it will reduce the area that we have to patrol, if you will, by about 35%. So a 10 to 12% reduction in revenue and a 35% reduction in area, that works as far as that goes. Does that answer your question, Commissioner?
Well, I mean, are you saying it works for you?
It does. It doesn't do anything for those.
Are you aware of this before you came in here tonight? Because
Actually, we had discussed it at some length at our advisory board meeting on June 21st, and we were not in favor of it at that time, and the advisory board is still not in favor of it, but you asked what the impact would be, and we had looked at the impact at that time of
Well, it does not seem likely, without a huge boom in economic development, to create a SMID from 12th Street west to 18th Street and have it be self-sustaining without a dramatic change in the landscape of businesses that are there, unless I've missed something on the many times I've traveled that route. This isn't downtown Kansas City, Missouri, or New York City, or some large where there are multiple possible additional SMIDs that could be created. I mean, you have to have some commerce, and while I'd like to be optimistic, I don't see that in the next 10 years
I will.
for that far west.
All right, I'm gonna propose as chair to divide this issue and start with the issue. I think divide the issue of the whole SMID, because you did it in one motion. So if you would permit, and you can tell me you don't want to do this, if you would permit, I would propose we vote on the boundary first and then on the whole SMID second, so that we don't vote up or down the SMID based on the boundary recommendation. Does that make sense?
It does.
So I'm going to accept the motion and the second to change the boundaries. After we've resolved the boundary issue, we'll vote on the whole SMID at that point. Does that seem fair to does the second accept that as well? All right, Commissioner Bynum.
Well, I think I have seen the impact of the Downtown Improvement District over the last 7 or 8 years that it's been in place. I work downtown, and I do see both the security ambassadors and the cleaning ambassadors out. I see them on a regular basis. I definitely see not only improved physical appearance of downtown as a result of the effort, but I also see an improved outlook, an improved attitude about being downtown. I just wanted to state my support of the Downtown Improvement District. If I agree with Commissioner Walker, because I think what he's saying is it would be difficult to form an additional improvement district for those areas west of 12th Street to the extent that it would generate enough revenue to support itself in any measurable fashion. I believe that's what Commissioner Walker was saying.
Correct. I don't believe we'll ever have another.
I
SMID.
support the improvement district in its current boundaries. I understand and appreciate the comments from the folks that we heard from last month that were not in support of it. I think there are somewhere along the lines of 300 and some odd businesses doing business in the current boundaries of the SMID, and along the lines of almost 700 parcels in that area. So 7 emails that, again, to Mr. Kaluva's point, came to me in the last 2 days after 8 years of operation, is, what is that, 1% of the total property owners in the area. So it's not that I'm uncaring about how they feel, but 48 hours prior to our vote, is a little late, in my opinion, to reach out and participate in the conversation. So I'm in favor of the current boundaries. I would, as an option of compromise, not vote against bringing them in, but it wouldn't be what I would desire.
Thank you, Commissioner Philbrook.
Yeah. So creating a district like this is not easy. It's not something you just, I decide I want a district. You have to get permission from every owner practically in that group to do it. And you have to have the money, as has been said before, the amount of money that these companies can produce to make it viable. And I just don't see that as a possibility of happening unless we do have some big companies, okay, that'd be great, come in that had plenty of money to put into it, but I can't see that that would happen. So I think if we cut off the end of the tail on the dog, so to speak, we're going to have a dog without a tail, and then that tail's going to have to take care of itself. And I think that would be very sad to do that. It's almost like saying to the people that are not complaining, you're out there on your own. Now you get to go out there and walk the streets and make sure everything's okie dokie. That avenue has looked the best that I can remember in years, and I enjoy driving down it now, where before I'd go over to State Avenue instead, to avoid because of the trash and everything. So I'm not in favor of taking it off from 12th West. I'm just not.
Mayor?
Thank you.
Mayor,
Commissioner, yes,
sorry.
sir.
I just wanted to clarify for the record, it is legally permissible to add on to the SMID in later years, but what I told the SMID board is this is very difficult. We have to go through this entire process that we've gone through over the last 4 or 5 months, and the notices, the publications, the hearings. So it legally is possible to add on in later years. It's just, you have to go through the whole process again.
It's an onerous process. Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. As it relates to the boundaries, I'm up and down that area of town quite frequently. And one of the, I think I've heard the term used here, optics, in the past, is that I have not been able to see the presence of the officers to the same extent that I see them downtown, what I call downtown proper. You see those persons very regularly and very consistently. As you listen to the complaints, it seems to me that it was very clear that those persons that had most of the complaints were west of 10th Street. And they simply are saying, we don't see the real value in the dollars that we're paying. To me, that's why I support the proposal, the counter proposal that's been put forth by Commissioner McKiernan. And when you look at the actual dollars and cents of it, if they're going to lose about 40,000, but they're also going to, quote unquote, reduce the operations in terms of effort, in terms of throughput, in terms of persons that are going to be out and about by 35%, then it seems to me that it makes sense in terms of dollar versus the actual equity that's put into it. So I support Commissioner McKiernan's recommendation for us.
Commissioner Kane.
Now I'm all confused. You know, Commissioner McKiernan went out and talked to the owners of the businesses. And I admire that, and I think that's what we're supposed to do. And the owners are asking, hey, you know, we're not buying into this. And that's why I second it, because I thought, well, and I believe some of those conversations were quite heated. And that's why I second that, you know, and do I want it beautified? And the truth be told, I walked down there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and it looked pretty good. But if the businesses don't want it, and folks, if you want me to pull my second, just say so. But I think you did a lot of work trying to do the right thing for the community.
Commissioner Townsend.
Well, thank you. I think the question that I had has been answered by listening to Commissioner Kane. I just wanted to make sure I understood what the purpose of the retrenchment of the boundaries, and if those businesses west of 12th Street were not amenable to remaining part of the SMID. And I know that Commissioner McKiernan, the last time this was before us, and several of the others of us, would hope that those business owners' concerns would be addressed. But if this is the way to address them, then I think I would support what's been put forward. Thank you.
Commissioner Philbrook.
Want some clarification on some numbers, Commissioner McKiernan. You said you talked to some people, some of the owners west of 10th Street, is that correct? Okay, and so what kind of numbers are we talking about? You know, you talk to and pro and con, that sort of thing. Just trying to get a feel for it.
2 and 3 dozen.
Okay, and so you talked to 2 or 3 dozen, and what was the pro and con on that, out of that?
There was no pro, there was all con.
Okay, well, that's what I wanted to know, because you didn't tell us how many people you talked to or anything, and
No,
so.
certainly the people who approached me were not in favor of it for a variety of reasons that have all been articulated here tonight.
Right, okay, just wanted to get some numbers in here, thank you.
All right, so the motion that's before us right now is not on the whole Schmid. The only thing we're voting on now are the boundaries. And the motion and second that's on the table is to retract the boundaries from 18th back to 12th Street and from Sandusky up to Torome. That's the motion. So we're going to vote first on that, and once we resolve the boundaries, we'll come back and vote on the whole Schmid as presented. All right, are you ready to vote? Commissioner Murguia.
I guess I can, well, I'm just gonna, I'll make my comment afterwards. We'll go ahead and vote, and then I do have a comment I want to make.
All right. If you would accept the contraction of the boundaries, you'll vote aye. If you will not, you'll vote no, and it'll go back to the original boundaries. Roll call.
Roll call, Walker.
No.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Ugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
No.
Bynum.
Aye.
The vote is 8-2. That motion carries.
All right, so now we have before us the SMID as amended, as presented and as amended. So Commissioner Murguia, you wanted to make a comment?
Go ahead, we can vote on this too, and then I'll make my comment. It's not going to be dependent on the vote.
All right, it has been moved and seconded. It's properly before us. Roll call.
Roll call, Walters. Walker. I'm sorry, Walker. Walker. Bynum. Wait a minute. I'm sorry, guys. Let's start this over. Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Commissioner Murguia.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have more of a legal and process question. Is there any law or rule against, what's the number of commissioners that can get together and have a discussion about an item like this without violating open meetings or violating, I think it's called the sunflower law? How many commissioners can get together and have a discussion about a topic that could potentially be on the agenda without violating any rules?
I believe it's the majority of the.
So any number, 5 or under, could get together?
That's correct. It's 5, but you have to be careful because if 3 of you get together and then 2 of you go talk to 2 other people, so there's an end result of 6 people talking, then that would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act.
Okay, that's good enough. This is my only point, that this has been going on for a lot of years. I just want to say this publicly. I believe each commissioner that was elected because of their leadership in their district. I want to be supportive of all of you. It is very difficult to do that if there is division amongst the at-large and the in-district commissioners. And as long as there is no law with you all meeting and discussing these issues that you're most affected by, then I would really appreciate better direction. It's very awkward for me to be put in a position to have to pick between supporting Commissioner McKiernan and supporting Commissioner Walker. I'd rather not do that. Now, I recognize there are times when the 2 of you are not going to agree, but I think the best solution to moving our entire city forward and moving the entire county forward in every district is that we all try to work together in those areas. And as long as there's no law or policy against that, I personally, as a commissioner that's not affected directly by this SMID, would greatly appreciate the leadership from those leaders in that area and give me some direction.
I have a question that just occurred to me, and I wish it had occurred to me before I voted, or before we voted. Can legal ask me this question? The premise of the SMID is based on a percentage of businesses agreeing to it within the SMID district. Does the removal of these folks lower the percentage of businesses that have approved it below the threshold?
No, Mayor, there are 2 different ways to initiate the SMID. The first time around, it was a citizen initiative. This time around, it was a commission initiative to start the resolution process. And so, and even if it had been begun by the citizen initiative, the statute specifically allows for the commission to reduce the size prior to the final vote. You can't add additional properties, but you are able to reduce the size, and so it's allowed.
All right, I'm relieved.
And if I just could add, Mayor, we will need to bring this back one more time next month with a revised legal description of the new boundary.
Thank
for
you.
approval.
And I would anticipate that would be, well, I would anticipate that'd be on the consent agenda since it has already been approved by this body.
I would assume that's what we're bringing forth. That would be within the intent of the vote that's given, and we're just formalizing it so you see it.
Okay, thank you. All right, that concludes that item. The next item is item number 2, a reimbursement to the juvenile detention facility and other jail improvements. I'll ask Mr. Bach to present.
This is a reimbursement resolution in keeping with our proposed jail project in the event that we need to purchase some property, and I go forth and make that purchase. This would allow us to take it back and be reimbursed from the jail project debt funds that we'd put in place.
No, that's right. All right. Yes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Seeing no further questions, roll call.
Roll call, Walker,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Mugia,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Markley,
Aye.
Walters, Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Vote is 10-0, that motion carries.
Brings us to item number 3. I've been assured by Mr. Bach he looked high and low among our 2,200 employees of who would be the most qualified to be our voting delegate to NACO conference in Los Angeles.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And it is Emmerich Cross. Roll call.
Roll call, Walker,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Mugia,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane, Markley,
Aye.
Walters, Philbrook,
You betcha.
Bynum.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0, that motion carries.
Please let the record show it was a unanimous vote for Emmerich Cross. Do we have an emergency management message coming through?
That's not me.
We got something talking underneath this,
I thought
Like
Hal
a
was talking
radio.
to himself, but it's a box.
we got our computer guy here or something? Yeah. Can you come up? Guy. Computer person?
Well, we're not here to verify that. We're simply here to say there is a voice under the table.
Talking like a radio transmission.
You gotta talk to it first.
All right, we do have a single item left. It is to reconvene as the Board of Trustees for the Land Bank.
Second.
It is all on consent agenda. Any of the remaining 4 people in the audience like to come forward and remove an item? Let the record show no one's moving forward. It is properly before us. Roll call.
Roll call, Walker,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Mugia,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane, Markley,
Aye.
Walters, Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum. The vote is 10-0, that motion carries.
Thank you. We are adjourned.
I thought we were